In a village there once lived two men who had the same name. They were both called Claus. One of them had 4 horses, but the other had only one, so to distinguish them, people called the owner of the 4 horses Great Claus, and he who had only one, Little Claus. Now we shall hear what happened to them, for this is a true story. Through the whole week, Little Claus was obliged to plough for Great Claus, and lend him his 1 horse, and once a week, on a Sunday, Great Claus lent him all his 4 horses. Then how Little Claus would smack his whip over all 5 horses, they were as good as his own on that one day. The sun shone brightly, and the church bells were ringing merrily as the people passed by, dressed in their best clothes, with their prayer books under their arms. They were going to hear the clergyman preach. They looked at Little Claus ploughing with his 5 horses, and he was so proud that he smacked his whip, and said, "Gee up, my 5 horses." "You must not say that," said Big Claus, "for only one of them belongs to you." But Little Claus soon forgot what he ought to say, and when any one passed he would call out, "Gee up, my 5 horses." "Now I must beg you not to say that again," said Big Claus, "for if you do, I shall hit your horse on the head, so that he will drop dead on the spot, and there will be an end of him." "I promise you I will not say it any more," said the other, but as soon as people came by, nodding to him, and wishing him good day, he became so pleased, and thought how grand it looked to have 5 horses ploughing in his field, that he cried out again, "Gee up, all my horses." "I'll gee up your horses for you," said Big Claus, and seizing a hammer, he struck the 1 horse of Little Claus on the head, and he fell dead instantly. "Oh, now I have no horse at all," said Little Claus, weeping. But after a while he took off the dead horse's skin, and hung the hide to dry in the wind. Then he put the dry skin into a bag, and, placing it over his shoulder, went out into the next town to sell the horse's skin. He had a very long way to go, and had to pass through a dark, gloomy forest. Presently a storm arose, and he lost his way, and before he discovered the right path, evening came on, and it was still a long way to the town, and too far to return home before night. Near the road stood a large farmhouse. The shutters outside the windows were closed, but lights shone through the crevices at the top. "I might get permission to stay here for the night," thought Little Claus, so he went up to the door and knocked. The farmer's wife opened the door, but when she heard what he wanted, she told him to go away, as her husband would not allow her to admit strangers. "Then I shall be obliged to lie out here," said Little Claus to himself, as the farmer's wife shut the door in his face. Near to the farmhouse stood a large haystack, and between it and the house was a small shed with a thatched roof. "I can lie up there," said Little Claus, as he saw the roof. "It will make a famous bed, but I hope the stork will not fly down and bite my legs," for on it stood a living stork, whose nest was in the roof. So Little Claus climbed to the roof of the shed, and while he turned himself to get comfortable, he discovered that the wooden shutters, which were closed, did not reach to the tops of the windows of the farmhouse, so that he could see into a room, in which a large table was laid out with wine, roast meat, and a splendid fish. The farmer's wife and the sexton were sitting at the table together, and she filled his glass, and helped him plenteously to fish, which appeared to be his favorite dish. "If I could only get some, too," thought Little Claus, and then, as he stretched his neck towards the window he spied a large, beautiful pie. Indeed, they had a glorious feast before them. At this moment he heard some one riding down the road, towards the farmhouse. It was the farmer returning home. He was a good man, but still he had a very strange prejudice. He could not bear the sight of a sexton. If one appeared before him, he would put himself in a terrible rage. In consequence of this dislike, the sexton had gone to visit the farmer's wife during her husband's absence from home, and the good woman had placed before him the best she had in the house to eat. When she heard the farmer coming, she was frightened, and begged the sexton to hide himself in a large, empty chest that stood in the room. He did so, for he knew her husband could not endure the sight of a sexton. The woman then quickly put away the wine, and hid all the rest of the nice things in the oven, for if her husband had seen them he would have asked what they were brought out for. "Oh, dear," sighed little Claus from the top of the shed, as he saw all the good things disappear. "Is any one up there?" asked the farmer, looking up and discovering little Claus. "Why are you lying up there? Come down, and come into the house with me." So little Claus came down and told the farmer how he had lost his way and begged for a night's lodging. The woman received them both very kindly, laid the cloth on a large table, and placed before them a dish of porridge. The farmer was very hungry and ate his porridge with a good appetite, but little Claus could not help thinking of the nice roast meat, fish and pies, which he knew were in the oven. Under the table, at his feet, lay the sack containing the horse's skin, which he intended to sell at the next town. Now little Claus did not relish the porridge at all, so he trod with his foot on the sack under the table, and the dry skin squeaked quite loud. "Hosh!" said little Claus to his sack, at the same time treading upon it again, till it squeaked louder than before. "Hello! What have you got in your sack?" asked the farmer. "Oh, it is a conjurer," said little Claus, "and he says we need not eat porridge, for he has conjured the oven full of roast meat, fish, and pie." "Wonderful!" cried the farmer, starting up and opening the oven door, and there lay all the nice things hidden by the farmer's wife, but which he supposed had been conjured there by the wizard under the table. The woman dared not say anything, so she placed the things before them, and they both ate of the fish, the meat, and the pastry. Then little Claus trod again upon his sack, and it squeaked as before. "What does he say now?" asked the farmer. "He says," replied little Claus, "that there are 3 bottles of wine for us, standing in the corner, by the oven." So the woman was obliged to bring out the wine also, which she had hidden, and the farmer drank it till he became quite merry. He would have liked such a conjurer as little Claus carried in his sack. "Could he conjure up the evil one?" asked the farmer. "I should like to see him now, while I am so merry." "Oh, yes," replied little Claus, "my conjurer can do anything I ask him, can you not?" he asked, treading at the same time on the sack till it squeaked. "Do you hear? He answers yes, but he fears that we shall not like to look at him." "Oh, I am not afraid." "What will he be like?" "Well, he is very much like a sexton." "Ha!" said the farmer, "then he must be ugly. Do you know I cannot endure the sight of a sexton? However, that doesn't matter, I shall know who it is, so I shall not mind. Now then, I have got up my courage, but don't let him come too near me." "Stop, I must ask the conjurer," said little Claus, so he trod on the bag, and stooped his ear down to listen. "What does he say?" "He says that you must go and open that large chest which stands in the corner, and you will see the evil one crouching down inside, but you must hold the lid firmly, that he may not slip out. Will you come and help me hold it?" said the farmer, going towards the chest in which his wife had hidden the sexton, who now lay inside, very much frightened. The farmer opened the lid a very little way, and peeped in. "Oh," cried he, springing backwards, "I saw him, and he is exactly like our sexton. How dreadful it is!" So after that he was obliged to drink again, and they sat and drank till far into the night. "You must sell your conjurer to me," said the farmer. "Ask as much as you like, I will pay it. Indeed, I would give you directly a whole bushel of gold." "No, indeed, I cannot," said little Claus. "Only think how much profit I could make out of this conjurer." "But I should like to have him," said the Fanner, still continuing his entreaties. Well, said little Claus at length, you have been so good as to give me a night's lodging. I will not refuse you. You shall have the conjurer for a bushel of money, but I will have quite full measure. So you shall, said the farmer, but you must take away the chest as well. I would not have it in the house another hour, or there is no knowing if he may not be still there. So little Claus gave the farmer the sack containing the dried horse's skin, and received in exchange a bushel of money full measure. The farmer also gave him a wheelbarrow on which to carry away the chest and the gold. Farewell, said little Claus, as he went off with his money and the great chest, in which the sexton lay still concealed. On one side of the forest was a broad, deep river. The water flowed so rapidly that very few were able to swim against the stream. A new bridge had lately been built across it, and in the middle of this bridge little Claus stopped, and said, loud enough to be heard by the sexton, now what shall I do with this stupid chest? It is as heavy as if it were full of stones. I shall be tired if I roll it any farther, so I may as well throw it in the river. If it swims after me to my house, well and good, and if not, it will not much matter. So he seized the chest in his hand and lifted it up a little, as if he were going to throw it into the water. No, leave it alone, cried the sexton from within the chest, let me out first. Oh, exclaimed little Claus, pretending to be frightened, he is in there still, is he? I must throw him into the river, that he may be drowned. Oh, no, cried the sexton, I will give you a whole bushel full of money if you will let me go. Why, that is another matter, said little Claus, opening the chest. The sexton crept out, pushed the empty chest into the water, and went to his house. Then he measured out a whole bushel full of gold for little Claus, who had already received one from the farmer, so that now he had a barrow full. I have been well paid for my horse, said he to himself when he reached home, entered his own room, and emptied all his money into a heap on the floor. How vexed great Claus will be when he finds out how rich I have become all through my one horse, but I shall not tell him exactly how it all happened. Then he sent a boy to great Claus to borrow a bushel measure. What can he want it for? Thought great Claus. So he smeared the bottom of the measure with tar, that some of whatever was put into it might stick there and remain. And so it happened, for when the measure returned, 3 new silver florins were sticking to it. What does this mean? Said great Claus. So he ran off directly to little Claus, and asked, where did you get so much money? Oh, for my horse's skin, I sold it yesterday. It was certainly well paid for then, said great Claus, and he ran home to his house, seized a hatchet, and knocked all his 4 horses on the head, flayed off their skins, and took them to the town to sell. Skins, skins, who'll buy skins? He cried, as he went through the streets. All. The shoemakers and tanners came running, and asked how much he wanted for them. A bushel of money, for each, replied great Claus. Are you mad? They all cried, do you think we have money to spend by the bushel? Skins, skins, he cried again, who'll buy skins? But to all who inquired the price, his answer was, a bushel of money. He is making fools of us, said they all. Then the shoemakers took their straps, and the tanners their leather aprons, and began to beat great Claus. Skins, skins. They cried, mocking him, yes, well mark your skin for you, till it is black and blue. Out of the town with him, said they. And great Claus was obliged to run as fast as he could. He had never before been so thoroughly beaten.